Welcome back to Analyze This. I'm Peter Bernstein, Senior Editor of TMCnet, and today we're talking ecosystems and what Apple and others should do with all that money in terms of what they need to control and own with Carl Ford, who's the head of Crossfire Media. Carl, great to have you. So what do you think? Where are we in terms of that cash hoard of the likes of Google and Apple and what they should do with it, and should they be going into the networking business?
Yeah, the funny thing is, Google at one point had a percentage of Clearwire, and they've backed out, and they actually took a beating on that. So it doesn't sound like that's going to happen in the near term. That said, what Apple seems to want to have is the same kind of relationship with the carrier that it's got with iTunes and the record industry, where the customer gets to select through iTunes what they want to have happen as to which carrier they select, as opposed to it being device specific. Now, I don't think you can get there with Verizon and Sprint because they're, CDMA and LTE in their own various ways. But on the GSM side, I think that's going to happen. And I think Apple's going to do that, not with the iPhone 5, but sometime next year, probably in the second half, according to our friend Anton Wallman, who writes for The Street and hangs out with Jim Cramer and all those cool guys.
So let me understand what you just said, because I just want to make sure that if this ends up getting quoted anywhere, are you saying that Apple's going to buy a network?
No.
No.
What I'm saying is that Apple's going to make it so that you have a dynamic relationship with the network operator, that in effect, through GSM, they're going to be able to help you choose which carrier you go to and not have your SIM be specific to the carrier.
Okay, so so hang on a second. Let's back up. Which is one of the things about being a carrier is being regulated. But in the death of the PSTN world, where things are going VoIP and regulators, at least in our country, the United States, don't want to regulate VoIP. This is this is like the golden age for these guys to enter the business, correct?
Yeah, and makes it so that companies like 8x8 or perhaps Magic Jack, which is now under the Vocaltech symbol, are possible acquisitions. Voxbone is an international player that might be worthwhile. I like TruePhone because of the fact that it's an MVNO already of sorts, and that's really kind of what Apple seems to be heading towards from what we hear.
So today, the news of the day is Apple's talking to the cable companies about replacing the set-top box. How wary should they be of getting in bed with them?
Yeah, I don't know, given the fact that the cable companies sold off Spectrum Co. to Verizon, I'm not sure what they consider essential for their future at this point. If you believe the Dolans and Cablevision, whom you and I are both subscribers to, you'd think that content is king, and therefore you'd want to have more control over that. But it may be that Apple's got something interesting in the mix that'll catch their eyes. But I kind of think that they really want to own the content at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, they really want to own the customer's wallet. Right?
Right.
And they also want to dominate the ecosystem so that they own all of their partners' wallets as well. The most interesting part about all of this is that the internet has changed the relationship between buyers and sellers, and therefore this is very much dependent upon how cool the user experience is as to whether any of this is going to make sense to the customer, right?
Right. And it's interesting, you and I are blessed in the fact that I think Cablevision's one of the best at managing the customer relationship. When they do truck rolls, they really do a nice job on it. Apple has this control over the App Store and iTunes where, the customer never really gets a relationship with the app guy. So it's an interesting question as to whether the cable operators are seeing this as outsourcing the role of being customer care as well. So, I'm not sure that plays for every single one of the operators. I think some operators may like that idea. I've complained bitterly about one specific service provider who remain anonymous but services most of Manhattan, and the other guys, we'll see.
So in closing, this is an ongoing conversation. This is about ecosystem development and who controls what. We will continue this conversation in the future. Anything you think is going to happen in the next couple of days that's going to knock our socks off as a closing thought? And what are you going to be talking about in Austin when we get together with the industry and talk about these things?
Well, I'm going to talk about how broken the business model is. You know, I can make a case that if they really want to buy a carrier, the carrier they should buy is somebody like a Boingo, who basically controls Wi-Fi. You know, we have Gruff Turner, a good friend who runs Snakeblazer, who basically sees that, you know, when 5 gigahertz comes into Wi-Fi range, the whole model changes, and you're going to be able to get some good services from them. And as LTE keeps being sold off in various spectrums that make it so you need a software-defined radio and an adjunct unit in a suitcase to make it so you can hit all the radio frequencies you need, Wi-Fi looks like a brilliant idea.
So there you have it. 2 pitches from us, which is number 1, you can join Carl and I live at IT Expo in Austin, first week in October. And the second one is we will see you on the internet, because this is a conversation that's got legs, and we'll be talking to you soon.